welcome to Fender Play Live. I'm Eugene Edwards, and I'm coming to you from the mothership in Hollywood and live from Los Angeles. And we're excited about tonight's episode, which is we have a very special guest who's going to teach us about the role of lead guitar, particularly in rock and country. We have solos, we have tone tips, and we have 2 giveaways today. So please stick around. Without further ado, joining us today is Rock and Roll Hall of Famer and first-time guest Chris Shiflett. Chris, say hello.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
So glad you made time to do this show with us, man. We've been looking forward to this for a long time. By the way, you and I met in person. You won't remember this, but on my birthday, right around the corner from where I'm sitting at the Palladium.
Yes. Oh, I remember that show.
Right?
That was a
it was
great
Dwight
show.
and X.
Yes.
The original lineup of X. Big deal.
Yeah.
Big deal for me. So that was a big night for me.
Two worlds collide.
Yes, beautifully. Yeah. Also, we're joined by our buddy, Brian Whelan. Brian, say hello.
Oh, hey, buddy. Thanks for having me down for this. This is going to be great. We're talking rock. We're talking country. I love it.
I gotta admit, I'm a little thrown. Eugene said that, like, I'm gonna teach about that. I don't know. I thought I was coming here to learn, man. In this Fender play, I thought I was taking a lesson.
This is the live part of the whole scrappy operation we run here, Chris.
Right.
Yeah. And also, of course, we always have our pal Dylan Caligiuri here. Dylan, say hi.
Hey, everybody. It's great to be here.
Great to
It's
see
a big
you.
one. It's a good one.
It's a good one. It's a good one. Dylan's going to be hopping on later to give away some more gear and tell us what's new on Fender Play. So that's what's happening here. Now, Chris is, as most of you know, he's a guitar player for Foo Fighters. He also has a podcast called Walking the Floor. It's indispensable if you want to learn about the history of country music. He's had years worth of incredible guests. I learned a lot over the years listening to that show. I want to plug that at the top. And he's released 2 solo albums as well. So we're expecting you to check those out. And you all know Brian from our deep dive episodes. And also he spent time as a dead peasant, which is Chris's solo project. So we've got a lot of crossover here going on tonight. Now, I want to just talk really quickly about the gear. Chris, can you tell us what you're playing there? What are you holding?
I've got right here. This is the master built version of my Fender signature Telecaster, and we call this one lovingly the Cleaver. This is my green one. I've got a couple of these. Got a couple of red ones. He usually comes in red, but this is like a Sherwood green or Sherwood forest green. I forget what it's called, but it's green, man. And everybody knows green guitars play better. As you can see, Brian's got the regular production model there, but this one's a little different. It's got the P90s in it, so it's a little different sound.
I noticed that. Now, can we hear it? Just give us like 30 seconds of cleaving.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Nice. Real spanky.
If you want to get into like gear talk right off the bat, I'll tell you why I started playing these P90s, and that is because.
You know what?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, about the P90s. I am interested because we'll get into the more details of the overall thing. But yeah, what's with the P90s?
Well, you know, I was mostly like a humbucker guy growing up, and playing in Foo Fighters is like loud rock music, and mostly played humbuckers and that. But we've got 3 guitar players, you know, between me, Pat, and Dave, and so at a certain point I started playing some guitars with P90s, and I just noticed it kind of like poked out in a different way. It was like a little different sonic space, and you know, something about these pickups, like it just kind of sits nicely between the traditional single coil and a humbucker, and it just sounds, you can get that, it's got that growly honk to it that works good for you know, for both country and rock.
Cool. Now, and then Brian, what are you playing?
Well, so I'm just playing the standard mass-produced version of what Chris is playing, and so
Right. And we've seen this on the show before. Can we hear
I play
that
this
one?
all the time. I mean, this is just like my favorite guitar. I love this guitar.
Oh yeah.
Oh, man.
See, Brian has the starter model, so we didn't trust him. With this is what's known as the pro model.
They don't even let me touch that. Yeah. I got louder, and then these other ones. I don't know what these ones do back here, man. Yeah.
Just put them all on 10, baby. Come on.
That's how he designed them. Now, before we jump in, as always, if you have any questions for us, for our guest today. Drop them in the comments. We'll try to get to them. Also, there's still time to enter the Chris Shiflett Signature Tele Deluxe giveaway. The link to enter is in the description. Enter and come right back, and you might hear your name announced later in the episode. Now, before we get into the weeds about lead styles, Chris, how did you come to play both country and rock guitar?
Well, I grew up listening to rock music and, classic rock and heavy metal and whatever, punk rock and stuff eventually. But, and that was really more, when I started playing guitar, I was playing like rock music, in high school and playing in bands and stuff, and even through young adult life. But I always loved old rockabilly and I loved old country music, but I didn't know it. Like when I would hear it, I would connect with it, but I didn't even know where to begin to look. And it wasn't until, I don't know, man, it was like I was probably well into my 20s before a friend of mine hipped me to listen to Buck Owens and listen to Merle Haggard and just get their greatest hits and just, that'll keep you busy for a little while. So that was kind of my introduction to it. I really, for me, it was the way that I kind of fell into it was through like the old honky tonk stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Which is magnificent stuff. And we're going to talk about how if there's a divide between that country and the rock thing, and then also where they cross over, which I'm fascinated by that thing all the time. And now let's start by talking about the differences between lead guitar in country vis-a-vis rock. So I'm just like, what's the deal, Chris?
Well, my take on it, I don't know. I'm curious to hear how you guys feel about this. To me, that sort of classic country, and especially if you go back to like bluegrass and stuff, where it's like really the kind of roots of all that stuff. There's a lot more changing around the chords than there is in rock music. You have to be kind of aware of like, if you're playing like, like in A, and then you go to the 4 chord. Well, all of a sudden you really, you don't want to be playing the major third of the A. You kind of want to steer away from that, and then you get into that, like that move, like all that stuff. So there's like just little things like that you have to kind of think about, and then be aware of. Whereas in rock music, at least the kind of rock music I was playing growing up, just like riff rock. When you'd start playing a solo, if the song was in A, I'd just be in like an A pentatonic box. And I just kind of do that over whatever the chords were doing. It like didn't matter as much. It didn't seem to rub as much. But like you really notice that in country and classic country, bluegrass, all that sort of stuff. Like if you're playing the wrong part of the scale when it's like over the 5 chord, it's just really janky. So it's, I to be totally honest, I struggle with that to this day. I was during the lockdown and the pandemic and all that, I was going over to a buddy's house that lives pretty close to me that was having like bluegrass pulls, and I'd never done that before. And that stuff's cooking. It's just going like crazy fast. And they'd like throw to me, and everybody takes a really long solo in bluegrass. And I'd be like trying to dip out after a couple rounds, and then because I'd be just lost. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, and they're
like, no, it's still you. Yeah. And I'd be like, what chord are we on? There's only 3, but why am I always on the wrong one? I think that to me is kind of like the primary difference. And with country, it's again, especially, and I keep saying like especially the classic country, because in modern country, these things matter a lot less, because modern country doesn't really. It's more like
modern country is rock.
Modern country is rock, or modern country is pop. You know what I mean? It's sort of like it's not. It's the rules don't really, those sort of stylistic things. Like you're not like having to worry about like, oh, is the 2 chord like a flat 7 or whatever. All that stuff doesn't really like come into it. So you just you just have to be. You just have to become aware of where the chords are moving and know like when you're playing the flat third to the major third or whatever, and when the flat 7 comes in, and all those little moves that
yeah, and Chris, something you did there when you were playing, like just giving examples between those two things, I think is a big difference between the two, where when you were playing rock, you went in and were playing down here your bass strings, E, A, and D. And it's like in a lot of the classic country music, like, Buck Owens, that we're going to talk about today, Buck Owens and Don Rich, they're not really using like the full 6 strings a lot of the time. It's like a lot of the time you're just using you're doing a single note thing or a 2-note thing with just a couple of, or this, these kind of parallel 6th where it's like you're just using a lot less of the guitar. It's a much more kind of spare way of playing. That's just what I noticed you doing just then, which I think is a great example of what it's all about between the two genres.
Yeah, for sure. And, and tone is like maybe the biggest determining factor too, because with big, loud, gained up rock guitar, it takes up a lot of space. And a Tele through a little combo is it's a much smaller sound.
And so neither one of us is doing that.
Different. Yeah.
Yeah, and neither one of us is doing that today. We both have like rock tone, and we're kind of playing country licks with rock tone, which is that's a big part of what you've kind of done.
Sure.
Is you're kind of playing country music with a rock rig and with rock tone, and there've been certainly. Dwight does a version of that. His leaned a little bit more into country music, but certainly someone like, I always think of like Social Distortion as these guys who really love Johnny Cash and Buck Owens and that style of music, but they were playing through, huge, amp rigs and humbuckers and everything else, but it's like they're using that vocabulary, but the tone was more modern, I guess, at that time.
I believe we have on the site, we actually teach this ball and chain, I believe, and that's a great example. That Social Distortion song is a great example where like the solo is like a single note thing. He's really just playing the melody very simply along with the changes, like Chris mentioned earlier. What I've noticed, especially with country guitar, I feel, as opposed to rock guitar, I feel as though in country we're emulating other instruments quite a bit. Like a pedal steel or a fiddle or I don't know, a banjo even. If we're in even that move there,
sure.
Is such a banjo move, and we would hear that in a country solo, but maybe not so much a rock one. And then Brian, you mentioned earlier something about call and response. Can you kind of demonstrate what that in country as opposed to rock?
And we did it. And what you just said too, I feel like it relates a lot again to Buck Owens and the Bakersfield sound, because those bands kind of out of necessity didn't always have all the bluegrass instrumentation. They would sometimes have the pedal steel, but they didn't always have fiddle, dobro, mandolin, banjo, all that stuff. And so the guitar kind of would come, and certainly they didn't have keyboards or horn sections. And we've talked about it a little bit on this show before, but the guitar just kind of became this utilitarian, like a Swiss Army knife of kind of imitating all these other things. So like you just played the banjo lick, and then certainly a lot of like, those are all kind of pedal steel licks. And then call and response, that's goes back hundreds and hundreds of years in terms of, band arranging. But like when I toured with Chris, we used to play, we played Together Again.
Yeah.
Which is,
cool.
do you remember what key we did that in? Was it in E? Together?
I feel like it was in
Together
was
Again.
it in C, maybe?
Together Again. So it's like, so if you come in singing that song, basically what Don Rich or whoever's playing lead guitar for that, basically every time there's a lyric, there's going to be a response on the guitar. So if it comes in going together again, when my tears have stopped falling, that only night. No. It's like, I don't know the words, but like that's basically the gag. And then when the singing is happening, the guitar player is not playing. And that, to me, is one of the big differences between playing lead guitar in a rock band versus playing in a country band is what you don't play. A lot of the time in rock, you're just playing. You'll be playing rhythm. And it's like, I think the Foo Fighters has this, where there's plenty of time in that show where all three guys are playing straight eights or playing rhythm, and they're all kind of doing it together. And that's what makes that sound. That's what makes it rock. And obviously they're in big venues and everything, and so they're filling up that space. A lot of the time in country music, it's the economy of what you're doing. So when
Right.
the singer is singing, you stop playing.
And believe you me, that was totally lost on me when I first started trying to.
Yeah, well, tell us
The
about
idea-
it. Tell us
I'd
about
never
it.
No,
heard-
what do you mean?
I'd never heard of the idea of I'd never thought about the idea of filling between the vocal. That because it's not just guitar and it's like everything's doing that. Whether it's the steel or the fill or whatever, it's all like filling between the vocal, and that's was 100% foreign to me because in rock music generally, when the guitar is doing something, it's like it's a guitar solo or it's like a a little lead thing, like that. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff, and it has nothing to do with the vocal. The vocal's like taking a break. And that was like a nutty thing to wrap my head around, like trying to I'd be learn the chords. I'd be like, why doesn't this sound right? Like something's missing. And it would be all that stuff, all those colors, all the details,
Chris, we have a question for you from Abby, who's watching. Abby wants to know: do you write rock solos, or is it more improv based?
I love this.
For recording, like making records, definitely map them out for sure. And it's it's always different, but usually, if it's a Foo Fighter record, and I know there's going to be we're going to record a song that day that I got to have a solo thing. I usually try to kind of work something out. So it's like you go in and you've got some idea of what you want to do, and it's going to change based on what everybody else in the room is thinking, what the producer's thinking, and it always kind of gets banged around, and you just kind of keep taking takes until you're kind of, it's almost like you just every time you're building a little bit, figuring out what works and what doesn't, and then get there. And then on my own records, pretty much the same. I mean, it's funny. I don't. There's certain songs that are I kind of like to leave to just have just to noodle around, and because that's fun too, and to be a little less fussy about it. But even still, West Coast Town and This Old World and all that stuff. I mean, I took a little time and worked that stuff out,
I'm glad you mentioned This Old World because we're going to get to that because I think that first solo on that song of yours is it's just kind of perfect in a lot of ways. But before we get to that, a couple of weeks ago you were talking about the second solo to Guitars Cadillacs by Dwight.
Yeah.
So tell us about that solo and what attracts you to it, and then how does that apply to this talk about country guitar and rock guitar, and what makes it a country solo and not a rock solo, that sort of thing.
Well, that song has those, or that solo, the second part of Guitars Cadillacs has those great string bending licks, and it's 6 that you're bending. I don't know. Yeah, what exactly
can you show us?
Called, but yeah. So it's it starts out that. So right there, you work up, and you go right into that, and you just kind of muscle it, and it always, I don't know, it just kind of lands right if you just kind of do it with enough enthusiasm.
You're muscling them both. You're muscling them differently. I mean,
yeah, because one's bending a half step and one's bending a whole step, because you're bending it up to. But it's in the heat of the moment. And that song is, I don't need to tell you guys, that song is cooking. So I'm probably playing it at half speed, but you get that. And then it goes to the 5 chord because the song's in A, and it goes up here. Kind of similar thing.
Nice.
Which I seriously had to sit down and because you listen to it fly by and it's all stuff that you kind of recognize the moves, but I had to put that thing in the amazing slow redowner and really take it down a notch to kind of wrap my head around it. But what do you think? I mean, I know you guys weren't playing with Dwight when Pete recorded that solo, but it's really, to my mind, there's some unorthodox weird stuff in there, I
agree. I think what I came across, from what I understand the story, as I understand, is that on that take that we hear, I think Pete had obviously a very strong idea about the beginning of that solo, and then getting out of that 5 chord and landing back on those, starting from that whole move there was kind of rather unplanned, and Pete's just trying to wrap it up and get back to first position A. So Pete didn't think it was a take. And then Dwight, I think, kind of said, you might want to listen to this. And Pete said, oh, that fell apart at the end, didn't it? He goes, maybe not in a bad way.
Well, here's my big question with that part of it when it goes back to the A. It sounds to my ear like he hits the A in 2 spots. That's why I play it like that. You know, when you get to that, like it gets there, but then the next time, like you would think you would play it like just play it twice there, but it sounds like it goes. You know what I mean?
I'm
like,
with you. I hit the first A here, 10th fret B string, and then I glissando down to play it again at 5th fret of the high E.
Yeah, okay.
Because it'll sound different. I mean, yeah, it'll sound different in those 2 places, and whether or not he did it by accident, it's like that's a pretty cool kind of effect where you have the same note but 2 different tones. You get closer to the nut, it's going to sound different. You know,
it's about pushing that position down to. I know it's a magnificent solo. Now, Chris, I'm going to put you. Could you? What if that were a rock solo?
Oh, well, we would have to get much more gained up for that.
Okay.
That'd be the first order of business. Is we'd have to switch to a somewhat different tone. Okay, so this is like nothing. You know, no heat on the amp at all. So I would put on a little overdrive. I'd switch from the Deluxe to something a little grittier. Let me try that on. And since it's a guitar solo, I mean, you know, you got to have a boost, right? As a matter of fact, I remember when I was playing with Brian a couple of years ago, we were rehearsing something, and I was like, should I put my boost on for that? And he was like, I think you should just make it louder. Just anytime you can make it louder, make it louder. So that was some of Brian's advice to me that I did.
Sage-like advice.
Sound.
Okay, so if, so that's like, more of a heavy rock tone.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, if it was rock, it's like, I don't know that you'd be playing all those 6. At some point, you'd have to bust out that. You know what I mean? That would have to get in there.
I mean, you could almost use we talk always about our cage system in here too, where you could add that middle string.
Oh, there you go.
See, you're already it's already more kind of rock just by adding more notes. You know, we're adding more tone wise, and then we add more note wise. I think I'm getting a pattern here for the difference between rock and country.
Or if you have Chris's tone.
Oh yeah.
With Chris's tone too, I don't have his tone right now, but also, or if you went the other way, single note, there's clearly a melody going there.
I was just gonna say.
There's double stops that you're doing.
Right. So yeah. That's how Slash would play it. You know, it's
or you could even go for like the. Get some of that going. Why not?
Yeah.
I love this. You guys, it's okay. So now this, what if we were going the other way? Let's just think: is there just a rock solo, and then how would you countrify that?
Well, I mean, a lot of my favorite like classic rock guitar players, like Jimmy Page or Angus Young or even Ace Frehley, like. A lot of what those guys are doing is, I think, applicable to both, you know?
Yeah. Oh.
And it really comes down to tone and, like, execution, I think, you know? Because, like, if you can, a lot of that, like... It's like you're pulling from the same stuff. It's still, like... pentatonic scales and knowing when to do the major and throw the blue note and then when to go to like the minor pentatonic box and all that stuff.
Yeah, and the tone is huge, but also like what you're doing there is there's so much more kind of razzle dazzle in the rock stuff, which a lot of it is like a lot of it is going to be like your vibrato and kind of how much or how little you kind of pinch the notes. You know,
yes.
we were fooling around with the solo from. You Shook Me All Night Long earlier, which is,
Now, that lick right there. But think about that lick you just did. That is like straight country in another tone.
Sure. Yeah. But imagine it with no vibrato, right? That'll change everything right away.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
You know
It's
what's
like,
funny is in rock music, and I didn't realize this again until I started trying to play some bluegrass last summer. And in bluegrass, you're never really, well, at least like the traditional stuff, you're not really bending strings like that. And I didn't realize how much I relied on that in rock guitar playing, or even like when I'm doing my sort of country rock stuff. But like that's kind of where, as a lead guitar player, I sort of reset and think about what's coming next. You know what I mean? Because you might be doing some kind of like, and then you're sort of like a little out of gas on where to go, and you just go. You're sort of thinking, okay, where can I get? And then you just let that hang. You know what I mean? Like, and those are like, it's like little tricks like that you learn that sort of buy you time.
Yeah, and covers up mistakes and covers up being out of tune and everything.
Saves you from making a mistake. Like,
or makes you out of tune. You know what I mean? So either way.
Yeah.
Then you just have to bend more. It's just like a vicious circle.
You might enjoy it. Full disclosure, for a time when we were doing Guitars Cadillacs in the show, I had an improv solo to go. And for a while, I would start, since we're swinging an A, I would start off with... You know, recognize that opening lift?
Was it? It's Zeppelin, right?
Yeah, it's Black Dog.
Black Dog, right?
Wow.
Yeah, the end of Black Dog.
Yeah.
He does that, but I would borrow a Zeppelin lick and put it into a swinging country solo because like Chris said earlier, you can kind of find a lot of crossover going on, especially if the things are swinging. You know.
Did Dwight call you on that? Because he's like pretty encyclopedic. It would seem.
No, but there's no way he didn't know. He catches everything.
Sure.
Everything. Got some questions for you. Got some questions for Chris. From Christy Robley in the Fender community wants to know where and when did the change from Cash and Owens to what we hear now with rock tone happen? I guess she's speaking in terms of modern country music. And your podcast, I'm sure you've kind of found the thread somewhere with all the folks that you've spoken to.
Where did it change for my tone? I mean, you earlier Brian mentioned Social Distortion, and I cannot like overstate how big of an influence Social D has been on me. And if you go to that era when they started putting records out on in the early 90s, like those records that became like big records, those first couple that they did on Epic, there's a few country covers on there.
Yeah.
And that was, it's like those are some of my first introductions because, all I knew up at that point really was like, I think I had like a Johnny Cash tape or something. I had like Patsy Cline's greatest hits. But so that was like gigantic influence. And of course those, on the Social D records, it's all like crunchy guitars and all that. I've tried so many different things like over the years, like I tried tone-wise, and tried to, like I really wanted to be comfortable on Italian when I first started kind of playing one a lot. It was challenging, to make that transition and like to play with confidence and because I would just, I don't even know if I had an overdrive on my board at that point. I was just like, I got to do this like Don Rich, not even really knowing what Don Rich had done. So just like a telly into an old deluxe reverb. Which is a great tone, but can be unforgiving too, So it's I've tried all kinds of things. Like I know that for me as a player, like I'm most comfortable when I've just got like a little hair on it, So whatever it is, and like the records, my solo records, I don't think of at all as like straight country. They're just country influenced,
That's right.
So I would be like, and I have been in this situation where I go sit in with a band or something and just plug into one of their amps and like, it's just a, like a deluxe reverb with nothing, like one of those things and where you're like, oh man, they throw to you for a solo and you're just like, oh no, like
you have to play around or with whatever tone you just happen to land upon at that point.
And that's not really my comfort zone. So for me, it's like I like a somewhere in between, it's a Stonesy late 70s, mid 70s Stonesy tone. It's like I find
Can't
I
beat
just
it.
go to that more and more, like a little slap back, a little grit. I always have phaser going, for a lot of the show.
Interesting.
I love phaser on the telly too.
And that's a very outlaw country thing too, which are certainly elements on your solo stuff.
Sure.
Question from Triggs on YouTube: how do you balance being a rad guitarist and a ripping surfer? Where did you surf today?
Okay.
That is, I can't. Okay, so that's my friend Tom Triggs that asked that question. I can't believe, because I surfed with him earlier today, and I said, "Hey man, I'm doing this Fender live stream. You better get on there and throw me some softball questions."
Thanks, Triggs.
So we surfed deep Malibu at a secret spot that is you have to be part of an elite club.
I knew you.
A club
I knew you
of
were gonna give it away.
three people.
Yeah.
And two of us were there, and it was amazing, and it was great. How do I balance it? Oh man, that's hard. That's hard. I'm always sneaking off when nobody's looking. Like, swells here. Throw my stuff in my car, drive away.
Okay, and a shout out from Guillermo Vitola says, Chris is a badass guitarist, one of my all-time favorites. Absolutely. Now, Chris, let's move into one of your solos. Again, I mentioned that first solo on This Old World. Can you play that for us and then tell us how did you put it together?
Okay, I'm going to switch my tone.
Sure.
Okay, now this is actually a good it's like, it's one of those things where in the studio, that song is capoed at the second fret, but with the low E open, right? So it gets like a drop E thing. But when I recorded the solos, I didn't capo it. So the solos on that, because like I said, I've been strings a lot. Like, it's like impossible to. I'm constantly struggling with that when I'm playing that song live, because when you bend strings with the capo, it throws it all out of whack. You know?
Never know if they're going to come back.
They don't. they usually don't. So I'm always like trying, because that thing. What is it? That's one of those things. I mean, I'm curious also, like, how you guys do those kind of licks, because where you're plucking and picking. Like, I don't remember. I probably played it down there for when I played it on the record, but for live, I got to play it up here because I got that dumb capo.
Oh.
So that is all just like kind of major scale happy stuff,
A little Mike Campbell there at the end there. Little jingle jangle.
100%. But then it's like you gotta. There's just a couple little spots where you throw those, like, the blue notes in there just to
Well, the way you
spice
start
it up a little.
I mean, so what we've been talking about a lot today is these strongly melodic solos that you can kind of sing. And so we kind of talked about the back half of Guitars Cadillacs, but the first part of the Guitars Cadillacs isn't it the? That's the first solo, right?
Yes, and This Old World is definitely in that wheelhouse. You know what I mean?
Right,
It's like
and
pulling
then
from that kind of thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, this. Get that kind of jingle jangle Mike Campbell thing there at the end, but it's very much, and it goes back again to Don Rich and with Buck Owens, a lot of that, using the lower 2 or 3 strings and then really all down in first position,
and also playing it back. By the
towards the bridge.
Yes.
Yeah.
All that kind of thing. You definitely get a different attack. It's
That's
funny,
very Don Rich.
with that song. I'll tell you a funny little story about that. So I recorded that album with Dave Cobb, produced it out in Nashville, and if you've ever worked with him, like you sit there and you play him your song. And like he goes, "Oh, what do you want to do next?" And so you play him your song, and then he kind of takes it apart and puts it back together again. And then you jam on it, and then you get the take, right? And I had for years covered, Waylon Jennings. Are you sure Hank done it this way?
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
And I always kind of marveled at that song, how there sort of isn't a chorus, and it's literally 2 chords the whole time.
Yep.
And it'd be like the song that gets the best response live of anything in your set. And I was just like, how the F did he do that?
How do you make one of those?
Yeah, how do you make one of those? So I kind of aped that, you know? And I mean, literally, it's just 2 chords, that song. But the demo version, when I wrote it, I was like, I can't just make it 2 chords because it's going to be too obvious, you know, what I'm pulling it from. So I added, like, you know, I don't remember what, there was like chords like this, you know, there were those kind of chords in there. There was extra chords. There was like 6 chords in it. And I played it for Cobb, and he just goes, yeah, man, those chords aren't country. Let's do it like that Waylon song. He just immediately just took it right back, like without me saying it. I was like, damn, he knew.
He knew it was in there.
Yeah.
Some of those chords were just really excuses to play the 1 and the 5 in the end anyway.
Exactly.
So we're just going to get to it. We have a question from Roberto on YouTube, and it's going to lead us to our last topic. Hey, Chris, I'm from Brazil, and I live in Seattle. Saw your show in a small venue day after the last concert that the Foos did there. Great concerts. What's the difference in tone when you're playing solo versus Foo Fighters?
Ooh, okay. Well, you can. Well, I play this guitar in both, so there's a through line.
Okay.
A lot of my pedals on my board are the same, so that's fairly consistent. Not all of them, and my Foo Fighter board is like a spaceship. It's gigantic. The biggest difference is in the amps and you know, the tone of the amps. Because in Foos, I'm playing a Friedman Brown Eye, which is like, you know, a very Marshall-y kind of amp, and it's pretty gained up, and that's what I use for my, like, you know, the big rock tone. And I don't ever put an overdrive in front of that. I use a boost, but that's about it. For that, and I'll A/B between that and an AC30. And the AC30 I set to more of like a Mike Campbell-y kind of grit, you know, like what I would think of as like a light grit. And maybe sometimes I'll put like a Klon in front of that, you know, if I want it to be a little rougher. And in my solo stuff, I mean, I've played a bunch of different things over the years, but lately I was playing my old Blackface Princeton Deluxe a bunch, which is, you know, a great sounding amp, but, you know,
yes, it is.
It's definitely, it's not, you know, it's not the super duper rock gain. And then I'll put like a what do you call it? Like a red snapper in front of it, you know, something like that, and kind of dial back the gain on it, so it's not super overdriven, but just to give it a little hair. And I've been kind of bouncing between that. I sort of bounced between that and an old Blackface Deluxe reverb. It's like depending on the gig, you know what I mean? Like if it's a smaller thing, I'll take the Princeton. If it's a little bit bigger, I'll want to have just a little more oomph.
So you gauge the room at that point.
Yeah, and like what we've been doing lately, like I've been doing, I went out and did some shows where I was playing electric guitar and then my buddy was playing acoustic guitar, you know, so you have that kind of thing. And then my buddy that was playing acoustic guitar for this last string of shows that I did got sick and couldn't come, so then I had a guy playing pedal steel to bring that flavor into it. But yeah, so you're sort of like, you know, that's actually something before we get out of like the Guitars Cadillacs topic too far. We were trying to learn that song, and when I had the acoustic guitar going, it was great because I could just not play the electric, and I could just go, and then sing the line, and then go, you know, and just kind of try to throw those in. But like, what do you guys do, like, on electric guitar for songs like that? What's your rhythm? Forget the lead guitar. What's your rhythm approach?
There is no rhythm.
There isn't. So I'm doing a bit of a boogie placeholder in a way. I'm doing the and I'm doing a hybrid picking thing.
So you're getting a little bit of the country skank in there.
Bopping on the upbeat there, just kind of.
Well, and it's funny when you hear the record. It's like I don't think he's doing anything. That's why I made that comment. I mean, Dwight's going a janga 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 janga. So the rhythm is coming all from the acoustic, like you said, And then the lead guitar is doing call and response, like we talked about earlier. Taught me how to hurt real bad and cry myself to sleep. How this town will shatter dream. You know what I mean? It's just wherever the vocal is not. So if you're if you're a beginner and you're trying to get better at country, just remember, if you hear someone singing, just stop playing, and they're gonna be like, hey, this guy is so good. He's so tasteful and he plays with such restraint. We got to hire this guy.
And he's right.
Well, okay, so here's the question, though, that comes out, because I find this in other songs, too. Like we were doing Whiskey Bent and Hellbound, right? Mm-hmm. And same kind of thing. And I always go through this, especially with those kind of songs that need a little swing. And, like, it's great when you have a little swinging acoustic in there. But when you don't have that, when that's not, let's say I'm just going out and I'm playing as a 3-piece, right? Let's say I don't even have the pedal steel. What do you do on the electric guitar? Just kind of dial your tone off and
it's like when I'm doing it, exactly
like that kind of thing.
And a lot lighter. I mean, it's like you can roll back your volume knob, but also it's like a lot lighter, and like what Gene is doing, where it's like. So I'm like palm muting, and I'm just not hitting the string that hard, and it's like you can dial it back, so you have louder, quieter, so you can dial that back. But I mean, it's. But I've also enjoyed, and this is maybe unique, more something I like more than everyone else. But like, even if I have a 3-piece, I think it sometimes is very effective to like stop playing when you're singing, because it really when you're arranging for bass, drums, guitar, and one vocal, that's not a lot of pieces to arrange with. So just by omitting one, you create this really strong arranging move. But that's what I think about it.
Now we have some stuff to give away. So I want to get to these last questions before we get there, if you guys don't mind. I think everyone's kind of waited on bated breath. Now, multiple people have been asking, is that a Buck Owens guitar behind you, Chris?
Good question. It is not, because everybody knows Pat Smear bought them all, driving up the prices and making it impossible for working musicians like myself to afford them. No, that is what that is. I'll tell you, I found that in a guitar store. I don't even remember where we were. We were on tour somewhere, something back east, and I found that in a guitar store, and I was all excited. Oh, it's a Buck Owens guitar. Cool. It's an old one. Awesome. What it actually is like the cheapo version of it. Same company. I think it's called the Bicentennial.
Something
Maybe
like that,
it came out in 1976, I guess, or something like that.
We'll assume.
It's pretty much unplayable, which is why I have it on the wall.
It looks great.
It's unplayable, but it looks great, so put it on the wall. It's a wall hanger.
Because it did its job. People are asking. We're talking about it. So, someone by the handle of Redman wants to know: did any Telly blues players influence your sound? Albert Collins, Muddy Waters.
I mean, I listen to a lot of music that was influenced by blues. I have never really, of course, I love the blues and respect the blues and respect its place in the lineage of what we all do. But I've never, Stevie Ray Vaughan, of course. I mean, I'm a 50-year-old dude. Nobody my age was not influenced by Stevie Ray Vaughan. If you're a guitar player,
ESL is asking, besides Social D, what other rock country crossover bands may have influenced or informed your playing?
Well, X certainly was another big one that introduced, they didn't play country or rockabilly really, but they had flavors of that stuff that kind of pointed you in that direction.
But Billy Zoom is clearly like a lot of those. So it's Chuck Berry Mach 2, right? It's very, very much in this. A lot of the basics are there, and then he goes.
Oh, off. Big time, and Skinner, man, like for real, Skinner in a big way, I wasn't like the biggest Skinner fan growing up. I think the only record of theirs I had was the Greatest Hits, but it's the Greatest Hits, so it's got like a bunch of good ones on there. But those guitar players, man, wow.
So tasteful.
Yeah, and they're doing a lot of what we're talking about. And those guys didn't always play with like the most super gained up tones either.
No,
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. Sweet Home Alabama is pretty
very
clean
strat,
which
is much more
and very country. A lot of real country licks on that song in particular.
Sure.
All right. Before we get to the fun stuff, we have one more, even more fun thing going. Can I con you into doing a performance of one of your songs, Chris?
Oh shit! Oh, excuse me. I wasn't supposed to swear. But
You said Shiflett. You
Yeah,
said
that's right. Oh,
Shiflett.
Shiflett. Yeah, Shiflett classic. That's right. Sure. Yes, you can. And you know, I'm gonna actually do a song that I wrote with my buddy Brian Whelan.
Hey,
Who's co-hosting this show. So yeah, this is a song called Room 102 that's off a record I made called West Coast Town, and me and Brian got together and wrote like 4 or 5 tunes on this song, and this is one of my favorite ones off it, and I always play it live. And this goes right to that thing we were talking about before, where you got a little gain, you got a little slap, and you got a little phaser. You got to have that phaser. And Brian, if you are so inclined, feel free to jump in and play a sweet guitar solo when it gets to that part.
okay.
It's in G major, but you can play it in whatever key you fancy.
I'll do the math for the lag time. I'll just do the math in my head. So if it sounds funny, just know that the live stream sounds perfect.
Why don't all of you start doodling when it gets to that part, and you'll know we got to that part when you hear it goes to the. And then you guys can just do. There you go. See, it's perfect.
That'll probably sound good.
I take a shot and a beer back, please. Last night brought me to my knees. I need your love and sympathy. All I got is this empty stool and me. I guess you left around 2 a.m. Said you was leaving with your girlfriends, but you went straight on in. A bartender, please set 'em up again. You wouldn't come back to my hotel room, so I walked all alone back to 102. Staring at your picture, faded blue. Tonight I'm drinking about me and you. I don't know when I'll be here again. It's not so easy being just your friend, but if you want me to, I'll pretend. I'll be here waiting for that one last slow dance. Same old story since we first met. We break our hearts every chance we get. Neon lights turn to regret. Hey baby, if it ain't just too late, I'm all alone in my hotel room, broken hungover right here in the 102, texting you desperate like a lovesick fool. Tonight I'm drinking about me and you. Take it away, boys. Light a smoke and stare at the wall. Wait until all my inhibitions fall like a hand grenade in my palm. I pull the pin and I make the call. I'm all alone in my hotel room, broken hungover right here in the 102, texting you desperate like a lovesick fool. Tonight I'm drinking about me and you. Tonight I'm drinking about me and you. Tonight I'm drinking about me and
Yeah.
I just freestyled that ending, baby. I just freestyled that. I was
Never
jamming.
happened before. Never happened before that.
Oh
one.
man, them
That was
boys were
good.
jamming, man.
Oh, we
tell
were.
ya.
Do you hear that midsection? We were jamming.
we created a traffic jam. It is painful not to jump in right now because of Zoom, but thank you, Chris. That's a beautiful. I'm
thank
drinking
you.
about me
That
and you.
was
What a great line. Well done, boys. Now we're going to bring Dylan into the shuffle here. Now, again, I mentioned at the top we have 2 giveaways. So we have our normal weekly Fender giveaway, and Dylan's going to be handling that. And then we have something else very, very special coming from our good friend Chris. Now, Dylan, can you assign some homework, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Be my
Based on
pleasure. I mean,
what happened today?
this was awesome because I got to be a wallflower and really watch the episode as a viewer was, and I can speak for all the viewers in saying this has been absolutely fantastic. Big takeaways that I want for homework for you guys. One is music is absolutely a listening sport, right? And you could hear when Chris is describing the difference between, country and rock solos, you can hear that it takes a lot of listening to be able to create these descriptions and then create these attitudes in your playing. And one of the biggest things I took away from this about Chris was, and I went back and listened to some of your solo albums, Chris, before the show today, and they're fantastic too. The Dead Peasant stuff and the hard lessons and everything that's been even recent as well. And Chris seems to find the joy in every situation, and it comes out in his music. Even he's alone in his hotel room in this last song, so he writes a song. You know what I mean? And so it's like, it's an attitude. It's an attitude thing. And that what a great opportunity to just be able to sit here and witness all that. So amazing.
Sweet. Thank you.
So, if you're a beginner, you can tell that there's a lot of chords going on here. And if you're new to the show, welcome. We're so glad you're here, especially if you came along during the holiday.
Yeah.
You notice we've got a lot of chord combinations going on, one in particular, G, C, and D, right? We've got a whole collection on Fender Play about the chords G, C, and D, and including the easy versions that you might start out playing in the beginning. But I wanted to add something special to this because you've seen a lot of fancy techniques go on. There's one that's available to you guys early on, volume swells. Check this out. So figuring out how to make these things like musical, right, from the beginning, you can start with that right away. You don't have to be Pavarotti. Did I just say Pavarotti?
You did.
You don't have to be.
I didn't know he was a guitar player. Oh, the blooper reel begins now.
known for his volume swells, I'm sure.
And vibrato. There are things there that apply.
It was a musical reference. Anyways, but yeah, so you this is something that's available to you as a beginner. Challenge accepted. Okay, if you're intermediate, lead guitar collection. All right, so you saw a lot of these techniques today. You saw sliding. Right, so you saw a lot of sliding here. You saw tremolo picking. So tremolo gets thrown around a lot for a lot of different reasons, right, when it comes to guitar. But it's just, that one's called tremolo picking. And then you've also got like cross picking, right? So stuff where you're playing across different strings. So you've got to learn how to basically move your pick onto different strings, skipping over one. So finally, if you're advanced, double, triple stops, and pre-bends. And we heard a bunch of these today, right? So all three of these guys on the screen played some triple stops. Also, they played double stops.
Whoa, I didn't play that one.
Well, they played a lot of different ways to play 2 and 3 notes together that are emulating other strings. So that's the challenge this week. That's a lot.
Man, I'm still thinking about Pavarotti, man. God.
There's some really good. The string bending stuff is so great in country, and there's like the one that Brian did. I think that sort of thing. But think about, this would be my homework side. Think about other places you can throw string bends, because that's like if you're in G, you can bend up to the major third, to the 5. But then somebody somewhere taught me the greatest country string bend like maybe ever, where you go toggle up to the 5 and bend back down and up, and then the 4. You can do that one, and then you can do combinations of it. And you can do that forever, and you can pretty much do that over any chord. But then you can also find, like, again, if you're in G, well, bending up to the 6 sounds nice. And then you throw that one back in there. And then there's also...
What if you just bent to the 1, man? You could bend to the...
Oh, yeah. Also, let's not forget the most powerful move in classic country is like when you hear it go to that flat 7, and you know it's going to the 4 chord, baby. It's coming. So you get your string bend and you get the flat 7 bend. That can be a great pre-bend.
Ooh, I like
get
that.
that one in there.
Pre-bend. That's
Pre-bend.
I like that one.
And the thing about this one too, you can bend up to the major third and then get the flat 7 on the high string.
Yeah,
that's a good one too. So there's a lot of places where you there's endless bends. You know, it's like don't just settle for the which is great, but you know,
But you want to explore a little more beyond that.
Yeah,
awesome stuff, Chris. Now, Dylan, do
Yes.
your normal weekly giveaway thing.
You've got it, because we got a lot of giving
That's right.
to do today. So again, check out the lead guitar collection to check out everything that Chris was just talking about. That's a great source for all that type of stuff to sort of connect everything. So we give away something on this show every week, right? We give away a piece of gear to a lucky Fender Play subscriber simply for using Fender Play for a minimum of 21 minutes or 3 7-minute sessions, because we want to get you on there, get you practicing so that you can play like Chris someday. Yep. So you are automatically entered to win simply by using Fender Play. Get to pick from guitars, basses, amps, all kinds of different stuff. Do you guys want to hear who won this week?
Oh, yeah.
We do.
Okay, give me a country-fied, but not too much rock with a lot of attitude and also some grit.
In G.
Give me just,
right?
yes, bring
A
it
lot of
up.
that
Here we go.
stuff in G.
Here we go. It's RGM.
Congratulations to you, Archie. Enjoy your new guitar, bass, amp, ukulele, whatever it is you choose. Enjoy it. Dylan, what else do you have for us today?
Yeah, just really quickly, because there's a big giveaway coming up. But we got a brand new collection on the site. It's called the Troubleshooting Collection. Now, this is a thing that I'm familiar with just in speaking, right? I oftentimes say maybe the wrong person's voice or refer to a serial killer. But there's stuff when you play guitar that you run into over and over again that keeps you back. And we've collected a bunch of different ways to approach some troubleshooting on guitar. And it's in the Troubleshooting Collection on Fender Play. Check it out. That way you don't have something turn into a habit that follows you for years and you might have to have hypnosis to have it removed. I don't know what you're going to have to do. Something pretty serious. So anyways, that's Troubleshooting Collection.
You know, there's two lines of thought on that. And I'll tell you, one, I think that works really well when you're having trouble with some technique thing. Slow it way down. Just go, play it as slow as you need to play it to actually play it. Or you can do what my brother Scott advised me to do years ago, and he just said, I just do it because I don't think I can't. That was his advice. That's actually pretty good advice. Like I kind of took that to the bank too, you know what I mean?
That's pretty hip.
Yeah.
That's pretty hip. Well, it's time.
Or do both.
It's the time that everyone's been waiting for. The winner of a brand new Chris Shiflett signature Telecaster Deluxe. Chris, will you do us the honors? It's the moment of truth.
All righty. Let's see. Drum roll, please. And the winner of my signature model is Cecil J.
Cecil J.
Cecil J. Come on.
Cecil, you have won a brand new signature Chris Shiflett Telecaster Deluxe, and it was bestowed directly from Chris himself, man. That is a special stuff. Well, Chris, thank you so much, and Brian, for helping us with our dive into lead guitar and all this fun stuff. We went long. We went really long because it was worth it, and because, well, frankly, we didn't really have anything else to do on Wednesday. Right?
Yes.
He already surfed. That was fun.
True. Thanks for having me, you guys. It was really fun. Good to see everybody.
Thank you.
Anytime. And Chris, is there anything you want to plug? Plug away.
Well, I have been recording some new music. I'm just kind of chipping away a new record, but I'm not sure when that's coming out. Hopefully sooner than later. But definitely, you're gonna not want to miss the new Foo Fighter horror movie, baby. That's probably the biggest plug. I'm an actor, and I'm gonna win an Oscar, and I'm gonna get killed in a movie. So come on.
All of this is highly believable. By the way, so years ago, and Chris, you're not gonna remember. No, you're not gonna remember this. I played the Foo Fighter New Year's Eve party when it was the Grease themed party. Do you remember a New Year's Eve party when?
Yes.
I was in the band. I thought this was going to be the easiest New Year's gig ever. I figured we'll play a few tunes, and then we'll just let all you guys and your buddies come up and play the rest of the night while I get triple pay. None of you came up. Dave came up to do the speaking part on Sandy, and that was it. We had to play all night. It was brutal. But you guys are a bunch of fun dudes. I can only imagine what happens when you decide to make a horror flick.
Yeah, it's pretty nutty. It's pretty nutty.
I imagine so. Well, everybody out there, keep safe, keep practicing, and we'll see you next week at the same time, same bat channel. Everybody's going to go out on a big G chord on the count of 4 or type a capital G into the comment section. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4.